welcome to the podcast, everybody. My name is Matthew Brazlow. I'm a finance director for one of Wisconsin's largest M&A firms. Today, we are rolling out our podcast called Blue Sky Business Acquisitions, and we have a 12-month agenda. Today, I am joined by Ben Woodward, one of our co-hosts, and Tom Flanagan. Guys, I'm going to fly through this agenda here and then give you guys a second to introduce yourself. But overall, we're super excited to bring this to you. You know, our group has over 50 years of finance background, and we hope to roll that all to everybody here this year. So obviously January's podcast is all about introducing us, introducing the podcast, and really rolling out our agenda. And the biggest thing about this is that it is a flexible agenda based off market conditions, right? But we want to jump right into what matters in M&A, and a lot of times that's sellers, right? How do you maximize your value as a seller? You know, you've owned a company for years, but what does it really mean to you when you're looking to exit? You know, March, we're going to switch gears. We're going to go talk buyers, how to buy smart. And, you know, thankfully, one of our co-hosts is, you know, one of the top bankers. So he's going to be able to, you know, guide you through what matters in today's industry, right? Is it cash flow? Is it experience? You know, is it post-injection liquidity? How to structure a deal that it makes the most sense. April, we're jumping back into sellers, right? You've noticed a trend here: sell, buy, sell, et cetera. How do you grow your business? You know, industry standards 2 to 5 years out. You know, so if you're a seller and you've owned the company for 30 years and you want to, you know, exit in the next 5, you should probably start having that conversation today. Because the difference between making small adjustments today and making last minute adjustments later can be the difference of hundreds of thousands of dollars in value. You know, May, we're jumping back to the buy side. You bought a business, now what? Do you need working capital? How do you grow? What type of changes can you make? You know, when you buy a business in a box, essentially, right, that becomes public knowledge, right, goes out to the IRS. All of a sudden, all these service providers are there. So the question is you get all these benefits in a bag, essentially. Now, what do you do with it? June, I'm sorry, is you sold a business. How do you make it last? We're going to have one of Wisconsin's top wealth advisors join the podcast. He is with Strategic Wealth Advisors. His name is Ruben Rivas. Ruben, here's your shout out. You know, and then July, we're going to jump back to buy side, and we're saying, let's talk Q of E. You know, we have a bunch of partners in this space that work as CPAs in the Q of E space. And, you know, we're going to have one of them on, and their main goal is going to say, you know, as an accountant, here's what I see when we analyze SDE, when we analyze expenses, cost of goods. You know, we want to look at the historical tax returns and the current financials and say, here's what makes sense about the deal, right? And the reality is, in large transactions, a Q of E is many times required. So let's talk to the actual person that does that. August is legal. Why, who, and when? If you buy a business that's $200,000, $300,000, $400,000, $2 million, $3 million, $4 million, or $40 million, it does not matter the size. You need legal representation. So we're going to talk with one of Wisconsin's top legal advisors. He or she, we have several of them that we work with, but they're going to be able to guide you through the do's and the don'ts of buying a business and the do's and the don'ts of selling a business. You know, what goes into an asset sale, what goes into a stock sale. September, deal review. You know, over the last several years, we've done multiple transactions with buyers that have not only found the business, offered on the business, accepted an offer on that business, then went through diligence, went through the SBA underwrite process, got through closing, started day one, transitioned, and also then went through the entire first year process. So we're going to have one of those buyers on to actually tell you what it does look like, what benefits they had, what pitfalls they fell into, maybe how to avoid that. My favorite topic next year is going to be October. That's the spooky turns of an SBA and how to avoid it. You know, we're looking to have one of our chief credit officers join that call. And I don't know how many times over my 20 years in industry that we've seen a deal get offered and accepted, get the loan approved, we're in diligence, third-party reports start to throw things off, and now all of a sudden the bank's not comfortable or the seller's not comfortable or you as the buyer aren't comfortable. So the question is, how do you mitigate that? And we're going to actually have the guy on the phone that approves these transactions when the credit memo comes up. November is going to be about remembering your diet. We're industry professionals working 40 to 60 hours a week sitting in a chair. You know, keeping a healthy diet, exercising regularly. I don't know about you guys, but I'm definitely getting older. um, and the biggest thing is, how do we maintain the highest level of health to uh, be a fiduciary? We got to be there for our clients when they need us to be, right? And then December is, Merry Christmas. Is it time to sell? 2026 is coming around pretty quick. Have you had that conversation, that tax planning conversation with your CPA? Have you talked to your wealth advisor, right? What's the market doing? Have you talked to myself and Tom? Have we given you a business valuation? You should never go into January by not knowing what your business is worth or knowing what your tax liability could look like. Section 179 is a real thing, folks. So we feel that we have a really good year planned. We're going to touch on every aspect of the M&A process. And as many of you will learn, I talk an awful lot, but I'd like to introduce our co-host here. Benjamin Woodward is a top SBA lender, consistently producing, 30 to 40 to 50 million. I think your goal this year is 50 million in production, Ben. But you've been doing this for 20 years. So why don't you take a couple minutes, introduce yourself, and then hand the baton over to Tom.
Oh, well, thank you, Matt. Really looking forward to joining this podcast here to really provide information to the market, right? To really help people out. I mean, at the end of the day, it's about getting the information out there and getting buyers, vendors, and anybody that touches a transaction the information they need to help move the process along or to avoid the pitfalls, right? I got into banking because I wanted to help people. I do like the fact that I get to look at a lot of different deals and know different buyers that I've helped. And then also too, through the knowledge of deals that I've done, also try to help buyers avoid some of those pitfalls, right? And then look at it from the standpoint of, is this a deal we want to do? So I worked for a top 10 SBA 7A government guaranteed lender, primarily focused on acquisitions, refinance, startup, and I've been in SBA now for 10 years and in commercial banking for 20.
Nice.
And so that's really what I'm looking forward to doing on this podcast. And I'm going to turn it over to our fellow co-host, Tom Flanagan, to share what Tom's all about today.
Thanks, Ben. Yeah, excited for what's to come with this podcast. Between these two guys, Ben and Matt, they have, close to 50 years of experience doing deals, and I
You're
have
aging us. He's
about
aging us.
2 deals or 2 years, excuse me. So while they're buying booze with their experience, I've just taken my first steps, but have learned a ton from both of them, as well as many other brokers within, Sunbelt here. Within our office, we probably have close to 200 years of experience. So have really soaked
Yeah.
up a lot of that. Have been a part of 15 closings in those first 2 years. So I've definitely cut my teeth, have a lot to learn still. But it's been a blast, and have closed, loans and businesses from HVAC, daycares, tool and die, auto repair shop, breweries, and the list goes on. So I focus primarily on pipeline management, just moving folks through the funnel, and providing the best possible service to our clients, buyers, sellers, and collaborating with all our great centers and circles of influence, right, to make sure that it's a smooth and efficient process. So, with
Awesome.
that, yeah, Matt, go ahead.
No, thanks, Tom. And I think you don't give yourself enough credit. I mean, for a new broker coming on with less than 3 years of experience, you've actually dominated the market. And for our listeners out there, Tom is actually my business partner. We formalized a business partnership this year, which is pretty exciting. Um, but myself, like Tom said, I've been doing this for almost 20 years. I was a banker for 17, been a broker for a little more than 3 years now, and been a part of all of those transactions that Tom was talking about. Currently have 16 active listings. But as a finance director, I do work with a lot of buyers to help them place debt. I work with bankers, like Ben, on a daily basis to analyze the trends that the SBA rolls out and how do we maximize that to get you a guaranteed approval. I said, knock on wood, I got a 99% approval rating. There's some things we can't approve, but if I give you a bank, they're going to do the deal. I think that's the benefit of knowing the credit box that's out there. Ben, you and I, we've worked on multiple transactions. I mean, I believe that a small teams win deals, right? Uh, Overall, what's your viewpoint on this list? I mean, are we missing anything that you think we should talk about?
Yeah, I mean, Matt, you and I we cut our teeth in banking and got really started working together back in, I want to say 2008, or maybe it might have even, yeah, it was probably 2008.
Mm-hmm.
And we were both working for
Rough time in
a
bacon.
different bank, right? And I was doing business banking, and you were running a branch, I believe, in Watertown or Beaver Dam.
Yep.
And so you and I we've known each other for a long time. But I just think that
And
this
I
is a
still
good
don't
list of
have gray
topics.
hair by knowing you.
Well, and the thing about it is, right, is I had gray hair until yesterday, but I went out and got a haircut for this podcast. So I told the lady cutting my hair, I'm going to be on a podcast. I need to look good. So can you clean me up and get rid of that salt and pepper on top of my head? She said, I can take care
Fair
of the
enough.
salt and pepper. I just can't take care of the shiny spot up there.
Yeah,
So I think we got
losing hair is always fun.
Yeah, so I think we got a good list here of a good 12 topics to talk about going into 2025. And that's really what this is about, right? It's really about building on the success of 2024 into 2025, getting information out to the market. One of the things we're going to do is if you guys want to hear topics that you want us to talk about on this podcast, email one of us and we'll gladly talk about that topic. Or if we feel that it makes sense, is we might even invite you on the podcast to be part of it. So really an opportunity.
Yeah.
This is a live, living, breathing, organic podcast that's in its infancy. So we're really looking forward to getting this thing launched and working to get out to the market and get information out to the people that we want to work with, people that
Yeah,
are buyers.
Ben, to build on that, I think the thing is too, we've been doing this long enough where we know what does work and what doesn't, right? And just because the SBA rolls out a new policy that says you can do something doesn't mean that the bank's going to allow it. And I think there's a lot of podcasts out there right now that share, while it's technically correct information, it's bad information, right? Because I think it sets people up for failure. And we wanted to structure this next year to really help you as not only buyers but also sellers be successful in this transaction. You're only going to sell a business once, and you may buy multiple businesses, but you're only going to sell that business one time. You better make it right. Tom.
I think, I was
go ahead.
going to add there too, is I think there's going to be definitely some overlap, right, between each episode. And, even if it's more buyer centric episode, I think it'll be helpful for sellers too to kind of understand what a buyer's looking at and going through, and vice versa. So, um, I don't think that one episode, I'm a seller, I don't really, need to tune in. But I think there'll be definitely some valuable nuggets in each one for anyone, whether you're a,
Yeah.
financial advisor, CPA, buyer, or seller.
Well, I think if
Or
at the end of the
or
day, our listeners need to or should have fiduciary based responsibility, not only to their sellers, but perhaps buyers. And if you're a searcher, this will definitely be up your alley, right? In business, doesn't I guess at the end of the day, we've seen the good, the bad, the ugly side of not only business operations, but exit planning, and we want to help with that.
So look, who's our audience for this podcast, right? It's buyers, it's sellers, it's service providers, it's anyone that wants knowledge about uh, doing acquisitions. That's really what this podcast is for, and that's who the audience is. It may even be for fellow people in the sales world that want to maybe figure out how that maybe they're struggling with building a pipeline. Like that's, you know, there's 60 years of experience on this podcast here in sales and helping you build pipelines, right? So there's a lot of things that this podcast is really going to evolve into, and
Mhm.
we look really forward to getting this out there, getting in front of the audience, and working with you and seeing where this takes us.
Absolutely, Ben. Um, so to our listeners, just to kind of recap everything, 12-month podcast. We're looking to renew it for 2026, should this go well. We're going to cover the M&A space, right? Buy, sell, industry professionals. And our podcast will release to the market on the 15th of the month. We'll have multiple sources, but we definitely encourage your support and you to listen in, but more specifically, ask questions. We'd love to host you on the podcast. We'd love to invite you. And if there's anything we can do in the interim time frame, don't hesitate to reach out. With that, we'll be recording, and our next podcast will launch on February 15th. Guys, any closing remarks?
No, I'm excited for the buyer one specifically. I mean, I think there's a lot of myths and misconceptions about the process, right? I mean, from all angles, but specifically on that side, and it'll be good to go over that. Strategies, whether you're, um, have a portfolio of businesses already and looking to expand, or just a first-time buyer or searcher.
Perfect.
Yeah, I'm just really looking to help the market, provide mentorship, coaching, to get information out that can really help buyers go through the process of day in the life of the deal.
Well, I'm super eager for the upcoming months and the upcoming episodes. Guys, thanks so much for joining. And with that, we're going to sign off.